Dream 1. Barber. A few years ago I had a dream. It was a fall night, and I was walking back home from the gym at around 2 a.m. I passed by a barber shop that I was familiar with between the gym and my house, and I noticed that its open sign was on. I thought that was peculiar, and I looked in the window. There was a single spotlight, illuminating a single barber's chair. I looked around the rest of the room, and saw only darkness. The back rooms were hidden from view from the street. I was very intrigued. It seemed somewhat believable, like a barber could actually be working. I put my hand on the door handle and pushed. To my surprise, it opened. In the dream, I did something that I certainly would never have done in real life. I walked into the middle of that room and sat down on the chair with the spotlight shining on it. A few moments passed, and then I heard something emerging from one of the back rooms. A door opened. It was my mother. My mother isn't a barber. She doesn't even live in this city. But of course, it made sense in the dream. She came over to me, and I asked her, "What are you doing here?" "Working," she told me plainly. "What kind of haircut do you want?" I didn't answer the question, but she started cutting my hair, making minimal eye contact with me and focusing. To my surprise, she was actually doing a pretty good job. Again, she wasn't a barber. She asked me if I was in school, as though she didn't know me. I responded as though it were a normal question and she were a normal strange barber. She also asked me if I had a girlfriend. I kept answering how I normally would to a barber. But somewhere in the middle of that conversation, something caught my eye in the mirror. I looked back to where the waiting chairs were. There was a dark figure sitting in them. Upon closer inspection, it was a copy of me, but his eyes glowed yellow. He was watching me getting my haircut, and smirking. I noticed at that moment that my mother had stopped cutting my hair. Her mouth was unusually large and drooping, and she was now looking at me. I realized that the drooping mouth was a zipper, and it was still unzipping. It zipped halfway down her neck and chest. I screamed and tried to leave the barber chair. She pressed down on my shoulders to hold me in place. The fabric of her face stretched over me, and I was devoured. Dream 2. Taking a turn. I came home one evening to find my girlfriend acting strange, out of character. The door opened, and she was standing in the middle of the room, smiling at me, clasping her hands together. I greeted her and began removing my shoes. She took slow steps over to me, placing her hand on my back, and I stood up and walked a little deeper into the house. I noticed that on the stove, there was a pan with a puddle of olive oil and 2 uncracked eggs sitting in it. The burner was off. I asked her about it, and she just smiled at me and said, "Oh, it's just coming along." This was the first thing she had said to me all day. I kinda laughed it off and headed into the bathroom to wash my hands. I'm a bit of a germaphobe after all. The door creaked open, and I felt a hand on the back of my shoulder. "Wait, there's something I want to show you," my girlfriend said. I paused, staring at her. "What do you want to show me?" I asked. "Follow me, it's out here." She cooed strangely, again reaching around my shoulder to push my back away from the bathroom door. Since it was in the hall, I started putting my shoes on again. "Follow me," she said once my shoes were on. She started to leave through the door, and I caught a glimpse into the bathroom through the crack that I had pushed open. My heart skipped several beats as I saw the bathroom mirror over the sink, and within it, I saw the image of my girlfriend, screaming, crying, and pounding on the glass from the inside. In the dream, I wanted to follow the impostor. I wanted to see where she would lead. It intrigued me, and so I pretended as best I could that I had not seen into the bathroom. The impostor of my girlfriend led me down the stairs, and then down the basement stairs of our apartment building. "It's there," she said, pointing to the dark corner under the staircase. There was an object there, a dead rat or something. I approached it, knowing what was coming, and in my dream, I whirled around with perfect timing to see a large kitchen knife about to be plunged into my back. I caught the impostor's wrist and wrestled the knife out of her hands. She began making otherworldly screams, and I dragged her all the way up the stairs, back to the apartment. It wasn't easy. She bit me several times on the arms, but in my dream I fought through the pain, knowing it had to be done, unconcerned with what the neighbors would think. When I got her to the apartment, I dragged her through the bathroom door. The image of my girlfriend in the mirror looked elated and beckoned to me to bring the woman to the mirror. I pushed the woman up to the mirror, and to my surprise, she went through. My girlfriend helped me by pulling the impostor from her side, and we dragged her back out of reality. At that point, my girlfriend was able to step through the mirror, and once she was out, she turned and smashed it. You always have to be careful with those you know in dreams. Dream 3. A drive to somewhere. I dreamed that my father came to visit me one weekend. He arrived in his car, and I got into the passenger seat. On his visits, we usually liked to go for hikes, and at first, we were heading to Dundas Valley, a popular conservation area with multiple winding trails. We were conversing and catching up on each other's lives. I was telling him about some of my organoid research and the struggles I was having, and as usual, he nodded and didn't quite seem to understand. But then he came to a question that he usually asked when he saw me. "How's your exercise going?" I told him it was going fine. Nothing too crazy lately. Been mostly hard at work. He didn't respond. There was a period of silence, and he slowly drove off the road between some trees. I didn't know where this trail led, but it certainly wasn't meant for cars. "And how's your exercise going?" my father asked. At this point, I was becoming concerned that something was wrong with his brain. I don't think cars are supposed to be on this path," I said. Silence. "And how's your exercise going?" he asked me, turning his head to the right, making eye contact with me, a pleasant little smile on his face. We were approaching a dark tunnel of trees, and the car passed through them, putting us in pitch black. When we emerged, it seemed as though we had entered a different dimension. He continued staring at me, like he was frozen in time, and we continued to drive through this purple-skied landscape. The trees had become a forest of mushrooms, enormous ones. The car accelerated, but my father continued to stare at me. I felt an invisible hand grab my head and face me towards the windshield. Everything became a blur, and we drifted off into somewhere. Dream 4. The enemy you know. Sometimes I have dreams where I'm just watching myself. A third person, camera view if you will, following something, searching for something. I had a dream where I was watching myself working on something, but it was from behind. I couldn't see what I was working on. The camera slowly rotated to reveal my face. It seemed like I was doing some sort of an autopsy, and as the camera panned backwards, I realized I was doing an autopsy on myself. I looked back up into the eyes of the me doing the autopsy and saw him staring at me. I gasped and woke up. Thank you for listening, guys. Tune in next Thursday for another video, and on Sunday night at 9 p.m. EST for Nightmare Theater. an open book club for nightmares. Send your nightmares to theforgottengrove@gmail.com. And until next time, embrace the beautiful dark.